Come on, Lions!
So Lions, this would be a perfect start for him. He comes in, it's across the face of goal. Fault was down there, roving it well, McLaughlin, and he jammed it home for a goal.
G'day Lions fans and welcome to the VFL report for our match against the Cats, which took place on the early shift on Saturday at 11 a.m. in front of a solid crowd at GMHBA Stadium. It was roughly half-half of both clubs' fans, and what a game it turned out to be in the end. And I was made aware from people who were watching it on the telecast that there are a few issues with the pictures being washed out. Now, I can assure you, it was that bloody sunny and bright and white there at the ground that it was sunnies only, and it was also pretty washed out in real life. So don't stress, the coverage was probably okay. It was just Geelong being Geelong. We trailed at both quarter time and half time, but surged in the second half, kicking 10 goals after the break to secure a 32-point victory. The final score was 16-21, 117 to 12-13, 85 in our favour. So, as you can see, the AFL and VFL boys swapped kicking boots for a week. I found it a little amusing that a week prior, hysterical fans were calling for the two teams to be completely switched, so we had an accurate scoring team at AFL level. Sometimes we just have to take a deep breath and remember that these things have a way of working themselves out, and teams have their on and off weeks in front of goal. That's life, that's footy.
I wore the words they fed to me, changed my voice just to agree, bend my spine until it cracked, just to never hear them laugh. I smiled through what I didn't feel, signed my name to what wasn't real, played the role, forgot the line. Now I can't tell what part is mine. I gave too much just to fit in. Now I don't know what's under this skin.
Connor McKenna got us on the board early, but Geelong responded with the next 3 goals, leading by 12 points at the first break. And after conceding the first goal in the second quarter, we fought back with goals to Ty Gallop and Fergus McFadden. Geelong answered then with 2 more goals of their own, but Jimmy Tunstall and Jack Manley kept us within 7 points at half-time by adding a couple more at our end. It felt at this point that we were right in it, even though the weather was starting to get colder, and boy was it cold. And a couple of the boys had injury concerns as well, but all that aside, I really thought we would run home strongly from that point. And we shifted the momentum in the third with 4 goals to 2, taking an 8-point lead into the final term, where Geelong narrowed the gap to 2 points early on, but we dominated for the remainder of the quarter. Fergus McFadden's third goal and Brandon Ryan's second extended the lead, followed by Gallup's third and fourth goals and McKenna's second, sealing the win. Oscar McInerney added a goal after the siren as well, and didn't we bloody love that? And Fergus McFadden's a guy I want to sort of keep an eye on and have a look at a bit more. It's my first time seeing him play live, and I was pretty impressed. And yeah, he could be a possible smoky in the draft, I guess, for us, hopefully. Not for anyone else. Luke Beacon was everywhere. He seriously racked it up off half-back with 30 touches and 11 marks. He looks like an absolute general down there, and even more so looks AFL ready now. I know I yap on about this a bit, but we eventually have to find a spot for him somewhere or we'll lose him. That's the reality of footy. Devon Robertson had a big game with 14 tackles, 29 disposals, 7 clearances and booted a nice goal. He's just relentless at this level and is doing enough to potentially get selected into another VFL Team of the Year. And now, look, let's be real. While it's a nice accolade, it's probably not the one you want if you're trying to aspire to be a regular AFL player. But it doesn't hurt having that in the resume if you are trying to be a regular AFL player, because you can say, hey, look, guys, I'm playing well. Oscar McInerney looked like a beast-sized man mountain on the ground. standing tall both literally and figuratively. He ruled his opponents in a ruck with 31 hitouts, 12 clearances, and added an after the siren goal himself, as I mentioned already, to go with his 25 touches. Putting together 2 strong games in the VFL now, you'd think he's potentially up for a senior return. However, Darcy Fort's recent good form creates a dilemma that is both good and bad. It's great to have depth and competition for spots, but Big O is rightly our first choice ruckman if all things are being equal, and that means if nobody's injured and everybody's ready to roll. He's also a fantastic clubman, something we saw in Grand Final Day last year, and would not hold any sort of a grudge against 40 holding his spot in the big time as well.
They say it's freedom, but I feel chained. Smile for the camera, don't complain.
Bruce Reville had a solid showing again, 23 disposals, 6 clearances and a goal, providing consistent run throughout the game. And with Bruce, it's not the quantity of disposals, but the quality that makes you sit up and take notice. He just looks so poised and calm with ball in hand, and generally uses it pretty well. And I've said plenty of times on the AFL pod that you see Bruce swinging onto his left or swinging onto his right, you just feel good about it. You just know it's going to go where it's meant to go. You got to love it. And there was even a couple of little Bruce chants for him in the VFL, which is something a bit different. Connor McKenna chipped in well throughout the game, probably not enough for a senior recall, while at the same time showing Chris Fagan, who was on the sidelines, that he's ready to go if needed. He looks a lot fitter and leaner than last year as well, which is really good for him. It shows that he's just ready to do the hard work and whatever needs to be done. Ty Gallop was clutch when it counted, leading the scoring with 4 goals, including 2 in the decisive final quarter. And something I haven't seen reported too much anywhere is that he did get a knock to his knee at one point and came off in the hands of the trainers. I was pretty upset at the time, thinking the worst. However, he got some work done, got taped up, did a fitness test on the sidelines and went back to the ground. It did look a bit proppy in some of the twisting he had to do on the sidelines. However, there's no injury report, so I'd say it was just a bit of a stinger and a tape was precautionary. So all good there. We hope. Unfortunately, the downside of the day was Tom Duday pulling out mid-game. He copped a head knock. Wasn't a massively bad one. He was sort of looked okay afterwards. But you could tell he was already also managing a taped up wrist, which he then had in a brace after withdrawing from the second half of the game. And after half-time, he didn't return to the field, just hung out with fans on the sidelines. Classic Duday. Such a genuine guy. He's a beautiful person. Hopefully nothing too serious with their head knock and the wrist, and the upcoming bye week will just give him a bit of time to recover and get himself right. Of the other AFL listed guys, Jimmy Tunstall did nothing to hurt his chances of a call-up. Darragh Joyce likewise looks ready to go if needed. He was also captain and led well, showing how much he's grown. Sam Marshall looked okay without setting the world on fire, and I felt he looked a bit small when running through the midfield, although the 2 old fellas sitting alongside me were up and about on him, and he definitely did nothing wrong at all either. That's not a criticism of him at all. He's only a young fella. Brandon Ryan, Zane Zakostelski and Luke Lloyd all did solid jobs in their roles. Lloyd in particular has put on some size and looks comfortable in a defensive role. And finally, I think Reece Torrent and Darcy Craven were a bit quieter for the most part. They weren't hugely noticeable, but didn't disgrace themselves either. Now, for the rest of the season, or I guess for the next week or so, with the bye coming up for both the VFL and AFL sides, there's a bit of time to reset. And this victory over the Cats propels the Lions back into the top 4 with an 8-3 record. And they'll return to action against ladder leaders Southport at Brighton Homes Arena on Saturday the 5th of July. And I think that's at about 12 o'clock. It could be 12:05. Either way. So get down there and watch that. Other than that, enjoy your bye week, everyone. Watch replays of some of our great finals wins. The prelim from last year is my favourite, but also the Giants comeback's a good one. And we'll have the AFL and VFL pods back next week. 5-minute warning is imminent. There's one ready to go. It's in the can. I keep saying that. And I'm going to deliver, I promise. Other than that, I'll see you when I see you. Cheers, guys.